Today we're going to be taking off the calipers, rebuilding them, and replacing the rotor. So first thing that you want to do is get the wheel off, obviously. There's a spacer over this, that's right there. And behind it, there's going to be a screw in a spot like this. This is where mine was. First thing you want to do before you get that out is you probably want to use some penetrating oil just to make it easy, and then you can get it out with a typical screwdriver. This one is ratcheting from Snap-on, makes it easy so then I don't have to, you know, twist my hand so much. They're pretty nice. But you get that out and then this rotor can actually come off. I have the brake line disconnected up here. I don't have it disconnected on the bottom because the nut is rounded off. But behind here, on the other side, I have these broken loose already and undone. These are either 17 or 19 millimeter nuts. So you break those two loose and then the caliper can come right off. If you don't disconnect the brake line first, you're not going to be able to take this off because it is, you know, lined in. So that's why you need to disconnect the brake line before you take this off. Now if you're not interested in taking your caliper off and you just want to replace the pads, it's going to be these two retaining pins right here that have cotter pins on the other end. This is what the hold-in pin looks like. So this part right here is going to go into the retaining clip or pin, and so it's going to hold it in on the other side. It's mirrored, and so it goes around it and then it pushes over the edge and it sits in like that pretty much. And then once you take these pins out, the brake pads can come out. But knowing the condition that this is in, I definitely want to rebuild it, and I've done so on the other calipers. They've been very badly pitted on the inside of the piston and the cylinder itself. The inside of the cylinder does not matter as much if it's pitted. However, the cylinder itself, if it is pitted, it will allow for leakage past the square cut seal, and that's something that you don't want because it can leak out your brake fluid and then lead to very terrible brake performance. So today I'm going to be taking this off, rebuilding it, spraying it after I clean it with some high heat paint. We're going to be doing this in silver just to match the other ones, and then we're going to put it back together with some new components, as in a new dust boot for it, a new square cut seal, and a new cylinder. In case you're curious how this turned out on the other side, I have this covered with a trash bag because it doesn't have any oil on it and I don't want it to start rusting. But this is what they look like. I have it on some Zimmerman rotors. These are the original spacers. You know, I kind of thought that these wouldn't be factory, but they are. So I resprayed the dust shield as well. And then this is what the rebuilt caliper looks like. It has new hardware in there that is zinc coated, so it gives a very nice gold look. Pretty flashy. I just really like the way that it looks. It turned out really good. As well as doing that, I also, while I was in here, took the liberty of replacing the rubber brake lines because sometimes they erode over time. And with this being a 40-year-old car, I don't trust those rubber brake lines because they can internally collapse, meaning that you can have a hanging brake caliper that after brake application, it just stays in the closed position. So it's going to lead up to dragging and increased wear. Alright, so back to the repair. Let's start by getting these bolts back here out. Alright, so we got the caliper off. Looks kind of nasty. The brake pads here don't look terrible, but I do have new ones anyways, so I'm going to replace them regardless. This line I'm going to keep on because, again, nuts rounded. Going to replace all these seals, going to take this apart. And then as for the rotor, I can just go ahead and take this off now. Sometimes they're a little stuck, so I'm gonna be so real with you. I was just gonna start whacking it with a hammer, like a dead blow hammer, because I'm not gonna reuse this thing. If you are, sometimes it's useful to get a bolt and drill it in there. It'll start pushing the rotor out. But personally, I can just yank on this. Yeah. And it's coming loose. And there we go. And there it is. Looks pretty rusted. Definitely time for it to go. Now, this rotor is a head and shoe construction, so there is a brake shoe on here. This isn't used for stopping though. This is only for parking brake application. They are adjustable, which is pretty cool. That's pretty much every car that has a head and shoe assembly. There's gonna be 4 bolts on the rear end of this shield. So one here, one here, one on the other side here, and one right here. They're, I believe they're 10 millimeters. But other than that, that's pretty much everything that you need to know. You can go ahead and replace this right afterwards. Alright, and now it's apart. Here's the pieces that came out of it that hold it together. So you have 2 slide pins, you have 2 brake pads, a hold down spring, a retaining clip which holds these 2 slide pins in, and then the mounting hardware. This part, I'm sure it's fine, but looks pretty dirty. That could use some cleaning. These slide pins definitely need to go because they're pretty rusted, and they were pretty hard to get out. I just put a one of these vice grips over them, set them to the right size, and then just wiggled them out, and I twisted it just so that I could get it out. I used some penetrant oil as well. That helped. And then this spring, totally reusable, but overall for everything here, I'm going to be replacing all of it regardless because I have new mounting hardware and rebuild kit for everything here as well. Now, this thing looks like it's in pretty bad condition too. I don't even know if this piston's going to be able to come out on its own, so I'm going to have to give it some gentle persuasion. I don't think it's going to be able to come out with air, so I get to show you guys some tips and tricks of how to take this apart, man. So if you're rebuilding a caliper on your own, one thing to note about this one is that it is a single piston caliper. The piston's a little bit big, it's got a longer stroke. This is the part that mounts onto the bracket specifically, and the rest of it is considered floating because it's driven by the piston. This is the only part that is actually mounted solid to the spindle, yeah, I guess it'd be spindle because it's not a steering knuckle because it's in the rear. But this has 3 main parts and a hold-in spring. This is the solid bracket. This is the floating bracket. Here's the cylinder housing, and inside is the cylinder. On it is a hold-in spring. The hold-in spring goes around, and as you can see here, this is press fit into place into the floating bracket. So whenever I get this apart, I'm going to have to hammer this out and get this spring off. Whenever I'm putting it back together though, I do need to put the spring on before I press fit it back in. Alright, so I got the solid bracket taken off. You can see the cutout where the cylinder goes through. It's a little bit rusted, but it can definitely be saved. Something I didn't mention earlier, these utilize Teflon pads. These little things right here, they can actually come off. They're for friction. If I'm going to use these, I'm also going to use anti-seize. I do have new ones of these as well. It's not going to be in every brake kit. In fact, the front brakes of this car don't utilize Teflon pads at all. They don't have them. They actually have a different spring system as well. This one's a little bit bent, but that's mostly for assembly and keeping it under tension. I do want to say, now that I'm looking at the cylinder more, this thing is totally cooked, man. Definitely time for this to be replaced. This boot here seems like it's super brittle. and definitely about to go. You can even see the rust on it as well. I know this is exterior rust, but I'm sure it's pretty badly pitted because none of the other ones had rust like this on it. And the inside of the cylinder bore was just totally ruined on those, and this is worse than all the other ones. But now that we're at this point, I can go ahead and get this sent out and take apart that cylinder, and I can start wire brushing everything. What I like to do on these is I typically get a chemical cleaning solution. Sometimes you can use oven cleaner, which is pretty cheap, very affordable. It's about the same price as brake clean, but it works better, surprisingly. It's something I tried because of a YouTube video, and I had great results with it. Soapy water, wire brush, all these things tend to help get the dirt off. So here's what the Teflon pads look like. They have a kind of U shape to them, and they go over the little side right here in a direction that points outwards like this. Now, not every caliper is going to use the same system, so Teflon pads is not on every single brake. Also, another thing I should mention is that because these are single cylinder, they might be a little bit different than yours. Some calipers use 2 pistons in their setup, some may even use 4, and on Porsches, the newer ones, they actually have a setup where it's I think it's 5 on one single caliper. So there's a lot of that stuff that goes into this. This one's very simple because there's no like brake fluid passages to worry about. It's just one single piston. On other ones, you might have 2 pistons and they're coming in from the other side. That is a fixed brake caliper. This one's floating. But a fixed one would have one on both sides, and they would come in and squeeze together. And that's something that would utilize a brake fluid passage that goes around. Those might be a little bit more tricky to get out than a single piston brake caliper. And I'm not really sure how to go about doing that because I haven't worked on one before. But I'm sure you could use the typical method of using air, compressed air in there, and it would take them out. Alright, so there's been a couple of days of break between the last time I recorded this and when I'm here now. Had a lot of work to do and hung out with some friends, so I haven't really been able to come back to the project. It's a little bit cold out today, but we're gonna get back to it. So there's a little dent here. I don't know how that happened, but I'm just gonna fix it with a pair of pliers, just kind of bend that back into place. So if you see the caliper right now, the cylinder housing is still stuck in the floating bracket. To get that out, I'm gonna have to use a dead blow hammer, but the line's still on it, so maybe I might have to take off the line to actually hammer it out. Hopefully not. Hopefully I can just get it out without having to worry about it, because that line, the nut on there is rounded off completely, so there's only one real way that I can you know, get it off, and that's by destroying the line, which I don't really want to do that because it's like $60 for the new line, which I mean I can totally buy that, but it's quite a bit of money, you know. So from this point, after I clean this off, I can go ahead and put on the new rotor, but I also don't want to do that right now up until I'm done with the caliper, because it comes from the manufacturer oiled and in a plastic bag, and if I break that seal and put it on and clean all that oil off, it might start to rust. That's why I have the plastic bag on the other one. I think you can see it over there. Yeah, so I just don't want my new stuff that I just put on to start corroding before I even drive the car. So I'm gonna wait until I put it back on, because maybe I might have something come up and not be able to work on this for a couple days. So I'm just gonna wait on that for now. So I think on the other calipers I was able to disassemble them all perfectly fine and then go ahead and spray paint them. But I think on this one I'm gonna clean all this stuff off and spray paint the fixed caliper, and then I'm gonna tackle the
floating part of the bracket with the cylinder housing. So I'm gonna go ahead and spray paint this first, and while that's like drying and stuff, I'll come back here in the garage and try and hammer that out and disassemble the whole thing. So I'm pretty sure that piston in there is gonna be frozen. I also can't put any compressed air into it because of the brake line on there. So I have another trick that I did on the other cylinder on the other side there, so that I could actually get it out, which I'm pretty sure would be pretty useful to a lot of people who are rebuilding their own brake systems. It's gonna work for everything. So a basic rundown of what I did is I got some channel locks, and I just gripped what I could actually get onto of the cylinder, and I had a pry bar, extra set of hands of course with me. My dad was helping me, so he got a pry bar underneath the channel locks, and as I was twisting it back and forth to loosen it up, he would pry down on the pry bar and kind of lift up the piston, so the rotational force and the drawing force of the pry bar was able to pop it out. It did take a while, but I mean, it's pretty dang effective. Alright, so we're back. The other stuff is actually cleaned off. I'm spray painting them now, they're drying. And then this part, I came back to it, got it taken apart. So coming back here to the cylinder housing, this thing is pretty rusty. And so there was a little bit of a black soot on the calipers whenever I was cleaning them. So I'm pretty sure the story behind that is that these boots right here got really old. They seem very, very brittle. And so some of them were actually split and cracked up front. And I'm pretty sure they're the original boots on them. So they're probably like 40 years old. So using a needle nose pair of pliers, I was able to slip them under the little ring that was around there and slip it off, and now I have the boot off as well. So as you can see here, it is pretty darn rusted, the cylinder. So I'm going to go ahead and set this up in the vise and take it apart. Alright, and so here's the setup right now. I have a little dirty shop rag that I don't need to use anymore because it's so messed up, and then a older glove just for like cleaning stuff around the house. The reason I have these set up here is so that I can get extra grip and it won't scuff up the metal surfaces, because this is the mounting point for the floating bracket, so I don't want to mess any of that up, but I also want it to have a solid point to mount to, and these are the most square points, so that's why I'm mounting it like this in the vise. And lost my train of thought there. Yeah, but the rubberized texture of the glove gives it more grip, so I'm sure it won't slip out. I did this on the other one, and it seemed to work really good. Alright, so here's the idea, right? You have a channel lock here. You're going to adjust it. So then, when you have it adjusted, it'll slip around here at the right width. So then you could get a good grip on it. I think I might have to go one more with this. Yeah, one more is perfect. So that's what it looks like around there. And so, lastly, once you have this gripped on, you want to get a pry bar like this, and you want to slip it under, and have someone else under here as well. And they're gonna just like slowly pry up with it as you're twisting, and it's going to help it come off. In some scenarios, you don't actually have to use the pry bar. You can just use the twisting of the channel locks and pulling, and it will come out. Sometimes it's a little bit harder, but I'm going to go ahead and try it without the pry bar and just do it by myself. Alright, now so the next part, I'm going to get this seal out of here and use my drill with a honing tool. I got this from AutoZone. I paid about $7 for it. What it is just like a couple of sanding blocks on a spring. And so you put it on the drill and it just spins around and it'll smooth out the surface of this. Alright, so to get this seal out, I use a pick that has like a 45-degree angle on it. Shout out Harbor Freight for this. But it's pretty easy. All you need to do is get a little bit of an angle on it. And look at that. I got it one-handed. So it really isn't hard at all. This seal looks pretty good, but still gonna put a new one in there since I have one. So the way it works is that the spring pressure of this is going to push the sanding blocks out onto the wall and smooth it out. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna clean it off real quick and see. That is looking pretty smooth. So I think that's good to put everything back together and put it back on the caliper. Alright guys, so a little update. I got the thing disconnected. Essentially I just put it back in the vise. I cut the tube off because I knew I wasn't going to be reusing this thing because the fittings on both ends were just super rounded off. And I looked online and there was like this tubing cutter kit, and it also had the tools to make the bubble flare at the end here. Yeah, that is a bubble flare because it has a flat on the bottom and then a round at the top. So different manufacturers use different certain flares for their brake lines. Some use ISO, some use a double flare, some use a bubble flare, and it kind of depends on what year it was. And so certain safety standards make it a certain way, because you won't have a car with a single flare. It's going to be double flare all the time. You'll see different shapes and stuff, and they'll have different terminologies. Anyways, this line fucked. So I just went ahead and cut it at the end. So I went ahead and got my nut splitter on it. I put it on there, sent it in with my impact, and split the nut open. There's no good way of saying this, so I'm just gonna let it sit how it is. But I went on both sides, and I was able to cut off half of it. And the reason why I did it like that is so that I could get some surface area of it to grab, because it was actually flat on this side. So I was able to fit a set of channel locks around it, and that gave me enough grip and enough leverage over the distance to be able to actually break it free, because it was staying stuck. I don't know if you saw my last video about the brake lines that I have, but they weren't moving, and so I kind of just did the same thing. But now finally comes free. Looks alright, but I mean, it's not like I'm gonna reuse this thing, you know. I don't know really why I'm expecting it. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and remachine this bore of the cylinder, just to make sure that it's nice and clean. Wipe it down with some alcohol, and then I'm gonna rebuild the piston. I know I already showed you guys, but after inspecting it more thoroughly, after it's cleaned off and dried, it feels pretty rough, and there's some pretty apparent pitting on it. So just definitely not something that can be reused, and something that you can very clearly see right here. There's some divots in it. I know this is at the very bottom of the piston, so it wouldn't really affect it that much, but you know, knowing that any damage is done to this, it would be something I would replace personally. Anyways, I cleaned up the desk a little bit. Still looks like a fucking mess, but so there's this little kit that I got from 944 only, no, it's 944 online. That's where I got it from. But I got a whole kit for all of the cylinders to rebuild them, for all the calipers, I mean, sorry. And it came with 4 new cylinders, new seals for everything, new boots, new hardware. So let's go through it real quick. Here's for the caliper rebuild. It's got new slide pins, some new cotter pins, clip, and a Holden spring. Here's the rest of the hardware. I only have 2 left to put in, but it also has some locking washers. And they're all zinc plated, by the way, too, so that's really nice. Here's the last of the bleeder screws that I can put in. Came with some brake caliper assembly lube. This is pretty nice because it helps with putting in the piston. Here's the new boot and what is it called? It's like the ring that goes around it that holds it in. There's a new one of that, and then there's 2 Teflon pads in here as well. And then lastly, here we go. We got our new cylinder. Yeah, it's from 944 online. But these are very nice. They're exact fit for these. The website makes it really easy to find all the parts that you need, and they have a lot of aftermarket support, which is very nice. Oh, also another thing that I didn't mention before earlier, with that brake line that I went ahead and just like completely destroyed, I'm not too worried about it because I ended up going to eBay and I found some replacement ones. They were like 60 bucks for a set of 2. They were already used, but I mean it's way cheaper than getting a new one from Porsche, which is like $203 for an individual line. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I'm saving myself some money. They looked like they were in good condition from the pictures that were taken of them. They didn't look corroded or anything like that, and I mean, the fittings looked the exact same and everything, and it's of the same year, and it's naturally aspirated 944, which is what I have here. And so I'm sure that they would work fine. And once they get here, I'm gonna end up replacing the right rear brake line as well. I already did the whole process on that, but if I can replace them with something that's new, if not better, then I'm probably going to do that, because I broke the old line apart and I saw that there was a little bit of corrosion on the inside, so I kind of don't trust what's on there right now, and that might have been why all the calipers in the rear were sticking so badly. Alright, so if we open up our kit here, gotta do this one-handed, so bear with me. So this is what it looks like. It's in a little plastic bag. I don't know if you can see it in there. There's the boot. There's the ring in there as well. And then there's 2 Teflon pads. It's kind of in the center. So that little paper in there, it kind of just folds apart and it becomes a manual for you to rebuild your brakes. So if you don't have a video like this or anything, it'll give you a walkthrough of everything that you need to know. It also tells you where the Teflon pads go, which is right here. Oh. Whenever I first saw it, I didn't really understand, but I'll go ahead and show you guys in the video whenever I'm putting it back on. So here's the new hardware that they got here. So we got our Teflon pads right here. We got our new square cut seal. Here's our locking ring. And here's our new boot. And let's get started with the assembly. Alright, so a couple things. Everything you're going to want to use this stuff on. I didn't even use the whole bottle. I've only used half, and I've used it on pretty much everything that I needed to. So don't be conservative with it. You can use as much as you want, really, because this is more than what you need, really. So first thing that we're going to do, we're going to lubricate this. Alright. So I go ahead and put about like half of the ring coated in it, and then I just rub it in with my fingers.
and that should be good. And what we're going to do here is we're going to go at a 45 to snake it in. And once we get it inside the groove, hold it in with your finger so that it can stay like level, because we don't want the square to roll, or else that's just going to eliminate the usefulness of the seal. So we want to make sure that it stays put. So use your fingers to kind of hold it in place, and then you can kind of move it in. And it's that easy. If you don't do it with holding your fingers in, it's probably going to roll on you, and you're going to have to take it out again and redo. Otherwise, that's probably the easiest way I've seen it done, and that's how I do it, and that's how I did it on all the other calipers, and I didn't run into a problem yet. For the rear piston, take it out, and then you're going to want to go ahead and lubricate this piston as much as you can, really. I do it on half of it, and I go at a 45. So pretty much just like this. Right? So it gets a good coating on most of it, and then you can hold it and just roll your finger around the whole thing. And this gets a good spread of the lubricant around the whole piston. Alright, that looks good. So we're going to go ahead and set it down. We're going to push in. Should not be hard to push this in at all. Should just take one hand. Alright. I think I pushed this one in a little bit too far. So I'm going to grab these channel locks, try and pull it out a little bit. Alright, that should be good enough. So you want your piston to be about this high off of the caliper. It shouldn't be sunk all the way in, because we still need to get our boot on. And so the way that our boot goes on is that you can see it's kind of got two lips on it right here. You're going to want to turn it around, and there's this square part right here that kind of has a bead on it. And you want this part to go onto the outer ring facing downwards. So we're going to slip it over. And then once you get it over the piston itself, you're going to roll this out and push the last part in, and then you can roll it back down. And this makes it so that it's super easy to get the boot onto it without having to actually fight it, because it's not going to want to like pop back off. And then you can go ahead and get your lock ring on. There we go. Alright, and you want to make sure that it's not fully at the bottom, or else it can make the seal ride up. So you want to make sure that it's just before the seal stops, so then it has a clamping force to keep it down there onto the caliper itself. This is what it should look like whenever it's done. As you can see the locking ring around here, you want to inspect it to see if it's rolled up at any points. Just move it down. And now that I have this put together, I'm going to go ahead and break this off and replace it with the new bleeder valve that I have. That should be good. There we go. Yeah. I was scared of rounding this one off because all the valves earlier had done the same. Oh. This is what it looks like. There's a little hole there that takes in all the brake fluid, and it'll bleed it through. So whenever you crack it, it'll start bleeding. Alright, and so what we have left here is our Teflon pads.
we're going to set those to the side for now. All the old stuff I'm going to go ahead and throw it back in this box so I have my junk organized and I can go ahead and throw it out, or I can come back to it if some of these parts are faulty. So here is our new bleeder valve. It's already got a little hat on it right now. It's just going to go ahead and thread in. I think this one might be a size 8, or maybe it's still a size 7. I don't know. It should be an exact fit, so I think it might be a size 7. One way to find out, right? Yeah, it's a size 7. Okay. Yeah, and that should be good. Alright, and go ahead and keep this for later in case you ever need to take this apart again and you won't have to order it. It's still only like $3, but I mean, might as well keep it around. Here's what the new brackets look like. These aren't new, but I went ahead and cleaned them with chemical cleaning. I used some oven clean, a lot of heat, hot water, soapy water too, and it blasted all the dirt off. And then I used some wire brushes for the parts that had some rust on them, and I was able to get it back to looking like this. These are resprayed with some grill spray paint. The reason I did that is because they're high heat, so they won't ever chip during a heavy brake application, so the paint's not going to fade off because it's rated for high temperatures. So on this, there is a specific orientation to how it goes. There's a convex side right here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's two parts that round up. The rotor is supposed to go on the inside of this, and they kind of got a cutout right here, so then the rotor can fit in. And so this part right here, the bleeder valve is going to go on the outside, so it's easily accessible. And then the port for the brake fluid is going to go on the outside as well. So the part with the bleeder valve and the port is going to go on the convex side. But, very important step, before you assemble it, you're going to want to put in this spring. Don't forget this. So before you start clamping it down in the vise, you kind of want to have it more square instead of at an angle. But you do want to have one side in first. That should be the side with the bleeder valve. So that side should be just a tiny bit more in than the other side, and it'll make it go in super easy. You want to make sure that these ears are lined up as well, right here, so that they have the tab in there. But once you get it like that, clamping it in with a vise should be absolutely no problem. Butter right here. And this last bit, it's good to give it some extra oomph so that the tabs right here, they become flush. And that's what it should look like after you're done. So now that we have this done, we're almost ready to put this back together right here. But first, we need to install the Teflon pads right in these areas. And we're also going to use a bit of anti-seize on these sliding parts right here, so then they don't ever bind on us. What I'm going to be using is some Permatex. This is some good anti-seize. I got it from AutoZone. It's about, I think, $27 for the bottle. But it comes with a little applicating brush on it too, so it makes it real easy, and you don't have to worry about messing up a brush every time that you go ahead and use this. Alright, and so this is what our little Teflon pad looks like. And so it's going to go in this little cutout right here. It's just going to slip in like this. Alright, and now you can see the Teflon seal in place. That's what it's supposed to look like. And so we're going to lubricate this with some anti-seize, and then we're going to press fit this floating caliper into place with it. Alright, so that should be probably about the amount that you should use. Don't go overboard with it, because it could get onto the brakes itself. Just make sure it's in the one area that it's supposed to be. Now I'm going to tell you right now, getting this caliper in to the spring is quite a pain in the butt. You're going to want to have it at a 45 here so that you can fit it on to this one first and then onto this one. The reason you want to do that is so that it doesn't shoot these Teflon pads out of the way. And so what you want to do here is you kind of want to line them up with, shoot, there we go. So what you want to do here is you want to line these parts up with the grooves in here, and then you want to push it this way so then it kind of goes out of the way while pushing this way as well, so then you can get this over, and then you can do the same on this side, and then it'll slip down onto the piston. The most challenging part of this is probably getting it in there and getting it to stay. So what I'm going to use is a C-clamp to kind of hold it in, so then I don't have to fight it as much, and I can actually use my two hands somewhere else where I need to move it instead of just one, so I have some extra strength around it instead of having to just manhandle the hell out of it. There we go. All right. Hopefully this doesn't explode over here. There we go. Yeah, sweet. I realized that the camera angle wasn't set up so that you can see this all. I apologize for that, but more focused on just getting it back together. Anyways, the C-clamp was pressing on this side right here and clamping it in, right? So it was pulling the this bracket towards the side, so then I didn't have to fight the spring at all. And then I can kind of push this down and out of the way so that the spring could go onto it, and then I had to I could make it fit back down in. So this is what it's supposed to look like after you have it all together. We have both the Teflon pads on. You can see the anti-seize in there. Now, I would say get a paper towel and kind of clean that area up right there, because you don't want any of that getting onto the rotors or onto the pads, because when you're doing the burnishing procedure, some of that could get onto the pads or something like that. Sure, it's only going to be on the back lining, but I would rather not contaminate my brake pads that I just put on the car. Because, I mean, if braking's your concern, you don't want to get anti-seize on it, obviously. So go ahead and wipe that off, for sure. Now, I think that's probably the easiest way to go about doing it is with the help of a C-clamp, if you don't have another person there with you to help you out with it. If anybody knows an easier way than what I did, and they have some easier troubleshooting options for putting on a single piston floating caliper, then I would love to hear those, because anything that makes this job easier would be greatly appreciated. But I think a C-clamp is my best choice, because it's $4. I already have a bunch of them, and this I think this is the 6-inch throw on a C-clamp. Worked perfect for it. Alright, and congratulations to me. The hardest part of this whole job is over, getting this thing back together. The next, we're going to put the caliper onto the rotor, and the first thing that we're going to do while we do that, we're going to actually have one of these brake pads in place of it while we slip it on, so then we don't have to fight it all whenever we're putting it back together. And then we're going to put this hardware in. We're going to use this first to mount the caliper, so it's not, flying around on us. Alright. I don't really think I can record this whole procedure, because I'm going to need both hands for it. Alright, so we're back to the car. Couple quick things before you put on the caliper and start getting all this done. To save yourself some time, for for any issues in the future, first thing you're wanting to do is spin this axle right here. See if there's any binding at all or anything like that. On mine, it's perfectly fine, which is very good. This also kind of checks the other brake if that's binding. So at first, this wasn't able to turn at all whenever I had the rotor on it. That was because of the pad. They were seized up and they were just dragging. But thank God that it was only the brake system and it wasn't a problem with the transmission or anything like that. Another thing that you want to do before you put these rear brakes back on, it is a hat and shoe setup. So what that means is that they have a drum parking brake on here. This is the primary and this is the secondary. And so there's a star wheel right here that kind of rolls back and forth to adjust it. I already have this adjusted properly for my brake rotor, but since I have it off right now, I thought I'd show you guys everything. I took this apart and I put some anti-seize in the threading right here. I know you can't really see it, but it's so that this is not going to ever lock up on me whenever I'm trying to adjust my parking brake. So I won't have to worry about that in the future, which is pretty good. There is a large hole here, right? If you can see that. This is meant for a screwdriver to go in through and turn this, so then you don't have to take off the caliper and the rotor to adjust this parking brake right here, which is very convenient. Now there's a couple different holes in this little hub right here. One of them is for a screw, which is to lock in the rotor. Not every car has this. I know BMW and Porsche are pretty big fans of this setup. BMW usually uses a hex key on theirs, and my Porsche uses a Phillips head. But there is 2 points where you can use the screwdriver. I'm not exactly sure why they have 2 points, and then there's another point for another screw. It's probably a smart idea before you put on this rotor to go ahead and spot clean with a wire brush. I have a whole assortment of them right here. Used them all over the place. This thing's looking a lot cleaner than it was before. Surprising thing is that some of these components had color other than brown, right? So just knowing that it's clean, I feel a lot more confident with the effectiveness of this braking system. Is this it's a dust shield. I went ahead and cleaned this off and then resprayed this as well. It's gonna look pretty good on there, but it's gonna go like this because the caliper is gonna be in the back, so there's like a little cutout for it. It's got 4 screws. Gonna go ahead and put that on before I put the rotor on. So this is on now. We have our new hardware here, which I'm going to install with the new caliper. A smart thing to do with these is put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads, so if you're ever doing a brake job again, these won't rust and conform to the threads that are there. So it's going to be easy to get them out. You can still reach the torque value if you put only a little bit of anti-seize on it. Another thing that I want to mention about this before I put these calipers on and the brake pads, you want to clean this off very thoroughly with some brake clean because it already has oil on it, so you're going to contaminate those brake pads if you don't clean this off beforehand. Alright, so now I got my caliper on. It's not on all the way though. I do have one of these brake pads in. So the reason I did it like this is I put this brake pad in. There's a little hold-in tab right here. It's pretty dark, you can't really see it that great. But there's a hold-in tab for this brake pad so that it doesn't move anywhere. And then on the other side there's nothing, right? You can't fit this brake pad in without moving the floating caliper, right? But if these brake pads are at their full thickness because they're brand new, you're not going to be able to move this floating caliper anywhere. So it's going to be impossible to get this one brake pad in. You can get the other one in, but not this one because the tab actually comes out a little bit to hold it in. So it's not going to work. So you need to put that in before you slip it on. So I did it like that. And then I have these finger tight right now. There's a lock washer, so that's why there's a whole bunch of space between it right now. But it's stable enough for me to go ahead and put the other brake pad in with it and get the hardware placed in, have the spring in there, put the cotter pins in, and then I can finally tighten up. And in between each of these steps, I'm going to be turning it over to see if it spins freely or if I mess something up and I'm going to have to readjust. Alright, now I got the slide pins and the spring in. What I do is I slid in this pad right here. You're just going to push this floating caliper back, and since this is loose, it's going to be able to, you know, go pretty flimsy on you, so you can actually slip it in really easy at this point. You're going to get this one of these slide pins in, and then you're going to put the spring in, and then you're going to compress the spring here, and then you can fit the last slide pin in around it. And then on the back side here, there's holes for the cotter pins. Yeah. So the cotter pins go in through there. And then there's a final big spring that's going to hold in your brake sensor. I don't have one right now, so I'm going to have to come back to that. But the brake sensor just kind of like ports in right there, and if it starts getting rubbed up against, it's going to report back to the computer in the car, and it's going to tell you, hey, your brakes are low, and it's going to flash the red brake light on this vehicle. On other vehicles, they just have some little squealing clips. So whenever the brake pads are low, they're like 2 or 3 millimeters, and it'll start squeaking. And it's a pretty loud, annoying sound, so you'll know it when you hear it. Now, a pretty nice thing about this setup right here, this isn't how it normally comes. It's usually just one big spring that works as the cotter pins as well. But this has separate cotter pins and then the big hold-in spring. The reason I like this more is that if either of these cotter pins breaks, you can replace them with just any cotter pin. You know, you're not going to have to get one of these big old things to fit it back together. So that's great. Alright, and so here we go. Fully back together. New rotor, new caliper, new brake pads, and new hardware on this. I haven't tightened it back up yet. But apart from the new brake line that I have on order, this is fully assembled. This is what the cotter pin setup looks like. Alright, and now that I'm at this step, almost forgot about this, but the spacer, this goes on last. And there we go. It kind of works as a failsafe for the screw if it was ever to come out. But it's mostly just to keep the wheel fitment at what it's supposed to be. And so that's just about it, other than the brake line that I'm waiting on to come in. It's on order. It's probably going to be here on the 6th. Or no, I think it's going to be here on the 15th. So kind of far away from right now, but hopefully it shows up soon, so then I don't have to keep waiting on this before I, you know, bleed the brakes and get everything here done. But yeah, that's the whole procedure on replacing the brake rotor, the caliper, rebuilding it, taking apart the piston, resealing the piston caliper as well, putting a new boot on, new bleeder valve, and adjusting the parking brake as well. So hopefully this was pretty thorough and helped anyone out who is interested in learning or going to